Implosion, page 154. One night in late December 1944, Ted Hall sat alone in his room at Los Alamos, writing a letter. Beside him on the desk lay an open copy of Walt Whitman's famous book of poems, Leaves of Grass. Hall carefully copied a line of poetry into his letter. The letter was addressed to Hall's friend, Seville Sachs, who would take the message to Soviet agents in New York City. Back in New York, Hall and Sachs had agreed to set a meeting date using what's known in tradecraft as the book code. Each had an identical copy of Leaves of Grass. When Hall copied a line of poetry into his letter, Sachs would find the line in his book. He'd take careful note of the line number and then check the table of contents to see how many poems had come before this one. These details gave the date of the meeting. If the passage, for example, was from the 12th line of the page, Sachs would know to meet Hall in December, the 12th month of the year. If the passage was from the 20th poem of the book, the meeting would be on the 20th day of the month. The time of day and location had been agreed upon ahead of time. Army censors read Hall's letter and passed it on to the post office. They had no reason to suspect its true purpose. When Sachs got the letter, he went to the main branch of the New York Public Library and took out a catalog listing courses offered at the University of New Mexico. He was thinking of studying there. He told friends and was preparing for a visit to the campus. With this credible alibi in place, he bought a ticket for the 3-day cross-country bus ride. Sachs arrived in Albuquerque and walked to the appointed meeting spot. Hall was just arriving from the opposite direction, and together they turned down a quieter street. Sachs reached into his shoe and pulled out a piece of paper, a technical question from Soviet scientists. Hall handed Sachs 2 pages of handwritten notes, everything he learned about the plutonium bomb so far. Back in his hotel room, Sachs copied Hall's notes onto a newspaper using milk for ink. Milk makes a good invisible ink because once it dries, it can't be seen unless the paper is heated. He burned Hall's handwritten pages, tucked the newspaper into his travel bag, and got on a bus headed back to New York. Kirsty quickly realized that he would need to mold his own plastic explosives. His design called for 100 or so pieces, he explained, which had to fit together to within a precision of a few thousandths of an inch. Each piece would have to explode at the exact same time, within 1/1,000,000th of a second, or the bomb would fizzle. Getting implosion right required a lot of trial and error. That put Ted Hall at the center of the action. Hall's new job was to help figure out what happened to a ball of metal when it was surrounded by explosives and blown inward. Working in a small wooden cabin, he assembled test bomb cores that were about the size of a basketball. He hung each heavy core from the ceiling, made a series of measurements, then took the core down. "Twice I dropped the damn object on my toe," Hall recalled. "I did it once, and everyone was very sympathetic, and then I did it again." Hall and a team of scientists took the core to a canyon a couple miles from the lab. They ringed it with explosives, ducked behind a shelter, and set off the bombs. Hall then took the bomb core back to his cabin, hung it up again, and performed more tests. The results helped convince Oppenheimer that a plutonium implosion bomb might work. There were hundreds of details to hammer out, but the basic design was set. "Now we have our bomb," Oppenheimer told Leslie Groves in late February. Very few people knew more about it than Ted Hall. In New York City, Seville Sachs delivered Hall's report to his KGB contact, Antonily Yevtsov. The information was cabled to headquarters in Moscow, which reported that the technical details were of great interest. But Hall's report also caused concern. Soviet spies worried they were being given disinformation. Was Hall really an American double agent feeding false data to the Soviets in order to make them waste their time and resources on bomb designs that wouldn't work? This is what Stalin's dreaded head of secret police, Lavrentiy Beria, suspected. If this is disinformation, Beria warned KGB chiefs, I'll put you in the cellar. To save their jobs and probably their lives, Soviet spies needed a second source to corroborate Hall's report. They needed Klaus Fuchs. On a snowy February morning, Harry Gold was at home in Philadelphia getting ready to work when he got a phone call from John, the name by which he knew Antonelli Yetskov. Yetskov was at a nearby gas station and needed to see Gold right away. Gold bundled up, left the house, and found Yetskov at the station, wet and freezing. They hopped on a streetcar and talked just loud enough to hear each other over the car's clanking wheels. Yetskov's message was short and to the point. Fuchs was in Cambridge. Gold was to go see him right away. Gold jumped off the streetcar. He traveled to Massachusetts on February 21st and found Fuchs at his sister's home. Kay welcomed me most warmly, Gold later reported. Fuchs led Gold to an upstairs bedroom. He explained that he'd been unable to get away at Christmas as planned. Things were just too busy at Los Alamos. Then he gave Gold a packet of papers, a report, Fuchs later said, summarizing the whole problem of making an atomic bomb. The papers, he said, included a statement on the special difficulties that would have to be overcome in making a plutonium bomb. Fuchs explained that he wouldn't be able to get another leave from Los Alamos. Everyone was needed for the final push to finish the bomb. Future meetings would have to be in Santa Fe. He unfolded a street map of the city and showed Gold the Castillo Street Bridge. They would meet there, said Fuchs, on the first Sunday in June at exactly 4 o'clock p.m. On directions from Yetskov, Gold tried to hand Fuchs an envelope with $1,500 in 10s and 20s. Fuchs brushed the money aside. It was quite obvious that by even mentioning this, I had offended the man, Gold reported. He flatly refused to accept it. Gold apologized, picked up the money and papers, and left. When Fuchs's report reached Laboratory Number 2 near Moscow, it was read eagerly by Igor Kurchachev, lead physicist of Stalin's atomic bomb program. Through Hall and Fuchs, Kurchachev learned that a gun assembly bomb with plutonium would not work. This saved the Soviets from going down the same dead end as Oppenheimer's team. Kurchachev also learned that it might be possible to build bombs using the principle of implosion. Very valuable, Kurchachev said of the material provided by the KGB. Exceptional importance. There's no doubt, he added, that the implosion method is of great interest.